most powerful Jedi in canonical history. Let's talk about it.
Without the Council, and without you.
What's up, Squadron 7? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I wanted to go over the top 5 most powerful Jedi in all of the Star Wars canon history. But before we begin, I wanted to lay down my framework and my criteria for how I'm measuring power. This is not a versus game, and this list is my interpretation of their usage of the Force in terms of raw power, scale, and magnitude. This isn't an endorsement on their dueling prowess, and this ranking shouldn't be used unilaterally to determine who should win in any given scenario. This is just a ranking of Force feats. With that said, this list may not include individuals simply because there is a lack of Force feats or displays of Force feats for that character. So I have to preface this by saying Anakin Skywalker, while he is the most powerful Jedi in terms of his M count surpassing everyone else, is not on this list.
This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Which is why there's going to be a top 5 most powerful Sith and Darksider video as well, so subscribe so you don't miss that video. So, Force power. It's a divisive topic. A topic that holds many different interpretations. Public enemy number 1, Nihilus, a wound in the Force that for all intents and purposes is simply employing a rudimentary Force drain, yet for some odd reason people think that he is literally eating planets. Galactus. Anyways, this list is going to be very simple in terms of criteria. The Jedi uses the Force, it affects something else on a grand scale or magnitude, that's it. Best to look at feats that are typically done in a controlled environment. One such example is Rey lifting a bunch of boulders in The Last Jedi. Some people see this as an amazing feat and typically compare it to Luke lifting a small rock in Empire Strikes Back, and it becomes fuel to paint Rey as a Mary Sue. Having trained under Luke, it's safe to say telekinesis is a rather basic skill. The one thing we have to consider in this very moment is she's under no duress, no distractions, and allowed basically 10 minutes to focus.
Lifting rocks.
And as Yoda says, it's all about focus. Luke was doing a single handstand, carrying Yoda, and trying to lift one rock. The circumstances are different. Speaking of Rey Skywalker, I also want to give her an honorable mention. She does not appear in the top 5 simply for there being a lack of substantial feats. She does die reflecting Palpatine's lightning back at him, and an argument can be made about her individual abilities such as psychometry and healing. However, most of those feats were dependent on the power of the dyad, and that's not how I'm measuring this ranking. Anyway, let's start. Number 5, Ezra Bridger. This was a tough one to calculate considering it's not a power of telekinesis, and that is typically an application of the Force that is easier to measure. Size, mass, all that good stuff. Easy. But Ezra Bridger comes into this list with a very unorthodox power, his ability to commune with animals and make a connection. This has been shown to be his innate ability since the beginning of Rebels, but has grown throughout the series, to the point where he is communing with very powerful animals that are for all intents and purposes virginses in the Force, Lothwolves and Purgles. In this scene from the ending of Rebels, we see he is able to commune with the Purgle herd to the point where he's able to telepathically link them to jump to hyperspace, taking the Imperial fleet surrounding Lothal with them. It's not a bombastic display like taking down a Star Destroyer, but I would imagine the stamina it took to make this happen and the ability and talent to be off the charts. Number 4, Avar Kriss. A newcomer from the High Republic stories, this feat comes from Light of the Jedi. The story reintroduces an EU Legends concept of battle meditation, however this time not as a catch-all morale booster where it would turn tides of wars and simply be a smart bomb in the way Bastila or Satele Shan would use it, but rather a way to connect all Jedi together in a symphony within Avar's mind, connecting all their powers to allow them to move a Tabana gas tanker hurtling towards Hetzel System's sun enough to change its trajectory and avoid a collision. I understand that some may consider this a collective effort, but I argue that Avar's use of this ability is what drove that feat to begin with. Without Avar's song, without her ability to connect everyone, their minds linked, they wouldn't have been able to do it. And as described in the book, it took a great deal of stamina for her to do this, even reaching as far as Yoda, wherever the hell he was at the time. She does this again in the High Republic comic, where she once again links with all of the surrounding Jedi whilst incapacitated, and enables all of their powers to overcome the collective darkness within the Drengir Great Progenitor. She may not be pushing mountains, but she's definitely very powerful in her own way. Number 3, Elzar Mann. Another newcomer to the party introduced in the High Republic story, Elzar Mann has shown an incredible gift with the Force since the beginning of this initiative in Light of the Jedi, when he is able to cooperate with Avar Kriss enough to manipulate the atmosphere and create a rainstorm in a climate that is typically arid. His Force feat in The Rising Storm, which Elzar describes as giving into the dark side, still falls under his own feat as a Jedi. Emotions roiled around him, through him, in him, like a storm out at sea, powerful and dangerous, but he could control them. He saw that now. He could control the frustration and the anger and the guilt and remorse. He could shape them, mold them, bend them to his will. He could use it all for good. He could put everything right. Elzar lashed out, his hand outstretched, his fingers spread wide. The force rushed through him like a wave, up into the air toward the falling island, unstoppable, defiant. 1 second the Nile ship was preparing to fire, and the next it was obliterated. The Sky Island had changed direction, slicing up where moments before it was tumbling down, soaring through the air like a discus thrown by a giant. It continued out into the bay, carving a looping arc through the Nile Armada to splash spectacularly into the lake. That, an excerpt taken from The Rising Storm, is describing Elzar Mann seeing a Sky Island falling from the sky, a great Nile ship poised to destroy it, and proceeding to muster all his might to force push said Sky Island into said Nile ship, arcing through an entire Nile Armada and splashing into a lake. This would be Elzar's greatest force feat. Now, we can't quantify the size of the island, but it is described as housing mountains, which says enough. Number 2, Luke Skywalker. The Last Jedi. As divisive as it is, as lame as people call Luke in this movie, provided our strongest unorthodox force feat in Star Wars canon. Simulfaturis, or force projection, is a highly adept ability that allows the user to project themselves across a distance. It's used by Yoda during Rebels to communicate with Ezra on Lothal from Dagobah. It's used by Kanan Jarrus. Kylo Ren, seeing Rey for the first time within his mindscape, believes it is this ability and ascertains that the effort would kill her.
You're not doing this. The effort would kill you.
Let's put what Luke does in The Last Jedi into perspective here. This is Ahch-To. This is Crate. Not only did Luke project himself halfway across the galaxy, he projected a completely different version of himself to Kylo Ren, a younger version, and a version that held Anakin's lightsaber. In my interpretation, Simulfaturis trumps telekinesis simply in distance and magnitude and use of stamina. It may not be as destructive, but it is an intensive ability. Now, Yoda's usage of Simulfaturis is even greater than Luke's, which brings us to number 1, Yoda, the small green dude that we all love and sympathize with when it comes to carrying the failure of the Jedi Order all the way back 900 years into the prequels and then into his death.
My little green friend.
The feats I'm using for this ranking is 2 things, Simulfaturis and telekinesis. As we covered in Luke's ranking, he used Simulfaturis from Ahch-To to Crate, about halfway across the galaxy. It's an impressive feat, and his ability to create an original projection of himself is even more impressive. But this is Dagobah. This is Lothal. That is a vastly greater distance and is arguably across the galaxy. Now, is he fighting? Is he creating an original image? I'd argue, yes, he's created a projection of himself and his surroundings, all while showing Ezra a conjuration. The environment is the same, the distance is greater, and that guy is nearly 900 years old at this point. The last feat I'm going to talk about is a bit earlier in Yoda's life, where he was much more spry. In Star Wars 2015, Yoda's Secret War, Yoda finds himself battling a stone power tribe. Long story short, a mountainous giant is trying to step on Yoda. What does Yoda do? He stops it and forces it back. Now, I cannot quantify for scale compared to Elzar Mann's Sky Island, but I'd reckon this trumps that feat simply because the Sky Island that Elzar is pushing is in a free fall, where Yoda is actively resisting a mountain giant trying to stomp on him. Our lovable green goblin is just a force to be reckoned with. At 900 years old, he probably had a lot more force feats in his life that haven't even been chronicled. I mean, as a force ghost in The Last Jedi, he conjured lightning from nature to burn the Uneti tree on Ahch-To, which isn't Sith lightning, by the way. Despite being trumped in M-count by Anakin Skywalker, Yoda has repeatedly shown that if you give him the right circumstance, he will show that he's got more going for him than simply having one of the highest M-counts. And that'll do it for my ranking of the top 5 most powerful Jedi in Star Wars history. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new about certain characters, or if you have your own ranking, you judge force power in a different way, please leave it in the comment section below. But don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more Star Wars videos, and of course, subscribe for part 2, where I list the top 5 most powerful Sith and Darksiders. And of course, a huge shout out to Squadron 7, our channel members, without which I could not continue to give you guys content. But that's the end. On to the next one. For light and life, we are all the Republic, and may the Force be with you.